Mommy's with the maggots now.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Well, hi there.
On the banks of the Red Cedar.
There's a school that's known to all.
Its specialty is making Evil Dead films. And the Spartans play good ball.
Good possession.
Yes. Hello, friends and fiends. My name is Austin Torres.
And I'm Anneliese Petersmark.
And this is Would You Die? The show where mommy's with the maggots now.
Oof. So if you haven't gotten it, we are talking about Evil Dead Rise, the most recent
the sixth installment
in the Evil Dead series?
Franchise.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, actually, it's a franchise because there's video games.
Yeah.
There's a TV show, Ash vs. Evil Dead. Mm-hmm. 6 movies, as we said. Comic books, a bunch of comic books.
6 movies in a season. That's a Community reference for those of you paying attention at home.
I love Community.
I know.
So anyways, Evil Dead Rise. That is, normally I don't think we would try and talk about the 6th movie in the franchise on a 4th episode.
That's fair.
Of, like, this show's existence.
True.
But that's how we roll.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing here is noting that all of the Evil Dead movies can kind of stand on their own. I mean,
yeah, they're unique in that way.
Yeah, they are, like, loosely related, but you can watch one without having really any context for the rest of them.
Thinking of horror movie franchises or just franchises in general, every other ones kind of have like a direct storyline.
Right.
These ones, they're all very standalone. Even the ones that do tie into other ones, you don't need to watch the other ones.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the only other franchise, it's not horror, but they're just as standalone as Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because while they tie into each other, you could watch Last Crusade and understand what's happening.
Right, yeah.
And, yeah. But anyways, Evil Dead Rise.
Evil Dead Rise.
Maggot Mommy.
Maggot Mommy. So, if you have never seen Evil Dead Rise, just a small synopsis, it kind of starts us off with a woman named Beth, who is a tour manager, I believe, or an equipment manager for a band, something like that, right?
I think she said she's a guitar technician.
Okay,
but she's like
technician.
really high up.
Right.
Like she's telling other people what to do. She's good at this job.
Yeah. And she goes to visit her sister Ellie. A lot of when I was, doing a little research and obviously almost every little article and stuff has a synopsis and they all say like estranged sister Ellie, but that's not really the vibe that I got. Like I got the vibe that they were not particularly close, but not necessarily estranged. So I find that interesting, but I digress. That's just a small annoyance that I had, I guess. But she visits her sister Ellie and her 3 kids who live in a high-rise apartment building that is like an old abandoned bank. They end up messing with some demonic entities.
Hell yeah.
And Beth and Ellie and the rest of the family are kind of fighting for their lives against those demonic entities.
You read the Evil Dead book, you're going to get the Evil Dead shit.
True.
6 movies in, we know this stuff by now.
Unless you've never seen them, in which case it's pretty well established at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, yeah, the cold open kind of rules, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting to have the cold open read exactly like every other Evil Dead movie. And we'll talk kind of about my opinions on the change in scenery, but I do think it's really interesting. It's very stereotypical. It's kind of an homage almost to the very first movie,
Yeah.
It's these friends in a cabin and some of them have some tensions and stuff.
And they do the play on the card trick.
Yes.
Where she knows the cards, but this time she's reading the book. Mm-hmm. And reading a book is not a trick in itself. Let me explain that better. She's, the possessed girl is reading the book that the non-possessed girl is reading from across the room.
Right. I
Which is
believe it's
freaky.
Wuthering Heights.
No, the way I said it made it seem like I thought reading was like a supernatural phenomenon. I promise I can read, guys.
Listen, I'm an English teacher. It might be in this day and age. All I can say is please read to your kids. Please read to your kids so bad. Anyway, that's my soapbox.
But don't read from the Necronomicon.
Don't read from the Necronomicon. Just read normal books with your kids.
No, I'm willing to take the risk.
Read something. If it's the Necronomicon, at least you're reading. Hey, I mean, literacy is down, guys.
Yeah.
Like
Cat in the Hat, Necronomicon.
You know, whatever will get them interested, just do it.
50 Shades of Grey. 50
Grades of Shay.
The teacher version.
Yeah, that's that book about like the English teacher who just ends up grading like 50 essays in one whole book, and that's the story.
All by Shay.
My
Shayla.
Oh no.
Oh no. But Evil Dead. Historical context.
So historical context. I mean, obviously, there's some like historical context in terms of like the fundamentals of the craft of making horror movies, and we'll get to that. But let's talk about our very personal connection to Sam Raimi and the Evil Dead.
Go green.
Go white. If you don't know, Sam Raimi and also most, if not all, of the original actors.
I don't know about the actors. I know Betsy Baker did. She went to Iowa too.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure Rob Tapert, who is a producer, he went to MSU.
According to the Evil Dead wiki, so, take this with a grain of salt. Sam Raimi, Ivan Raimi, Rob Tapert, Bruce Campbell, and Betsy Baker all attended Michigan State University, though all at different times. Out of the 5, only Ivan Raimi, Tapert, and Baker graduated, while Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell dropped out prior to graduation.
Which makes sense because, one of them became like a movie star and the other one, ended up directing Spider-Man.
Right.
So they made the right choice. Mm-hmm. They can always get their degree if they wanted to.
That's true.
I mean, you get that Marvel money. That would be awesome. Yeah, so if you watch the Evil Dead movies or even the TV show, in the original, Betsy Baker's character is wearing a Michigan State sweater.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The Michigan State sweater appears in Evil Dead 2. There's
Michigan State University, the actual college, only appears, I believe, in the PlayStation 2 video game.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Although, interestingly enough, the PlayStation 2 video game takes place in Dearborn, Michigan, and they just kind of move MSU to Dearborn, which if you've ever been to Dearborn, a university of that magnitude cannot exist in that place. But that's not the point.
But, yeah, there's a lot of MSU love in this franchise, which we'll talk about a little later when I tell you my biggest gripe with this movie.
Is it that there's no MSU love?
Spoilers.
Sorry.
But also, what the fuck? This is an Evil Dead movie. Where's my Michigan State Spartan logo, Even the remake, the 2013 Evil Dead, the main character, Mia, she's wearing a Michigan State sweater.
Right.
And it's this beautiful, I think she's wearing the white one with the green letters.
Evil Dead is really a pioneer in terms of, the practical effects part of horror.
I think it's more of a pioneer in independent horror.
Well, yes,
of
course.
And doing just crazy shit with no money. Evil Dead is, the Evil Dead is one of those movies where kids growing up in the 80s would watch this and be like, wait a second, I can make a movie.
Well, I think that's I think those two things go hand in hand. I don't think you...
to do practical effects on that budget.
Well, yeah, I think that limitations breed ingenuity, and that is why all of their effects had to be,
right,
practical.
Because...
And to continue with that
right.
tradition in modern horror, I think is really nice to see.
Yeah, because there's a lot of great practical stuff in this movie, Evil Dead Rise.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not 100%. I mean, there's a lot
more. It ain't
more.
indie anymore.
No, absolutely not. But it is very much sticking with the idea of the practical effects and the special effects is really nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is a through line through all of the iterations of the Evil Dead, no matter what their budget.
I think the Evil Dead, the original, I mean, yeah, it's hard to say because it comes out the same year as American Werewolf in London, you know, and The Thing comes out.
Right.
And so there's a lot of films, but I think to your point, Evil Dead, what it's doing is it's just unabashedly gory. It is no holds barred. American Werewolf in London has a little bit of class to it, right? The Thing has a little bit of class to it. And those are the other big important, and The Howling, right? But what Evil Dead does, and I think you're spot on, is it's not rated R. It's not rated, and it's so relentless, and it's so in your face, just true terror.
Yeah.
And the practical effects, it's like, I don't think films were really got that kind of, like, I'm thinking of like the pencil and the ankle.
Yeah, and there's no let up either. It's not
right.
You know, last week we talked about Hereditary, and Hereditary, the true horror in Hereditary, and obviously very different genre, very different movie. I'm not trying to compare the two, but the horror in Hereditary is that there's so much suspense and tension and build up.
Yeah.
With this, once you get to the bad evil shit, the bad evil shit just continues to happen. It's like every scene a new thing is happening.
Right.
It's not a lot of like discovering what's going on. It's like, can we survive this night?
Right. And to your point, the practical effects really sell this because it's in your face. It's very aggressive. And the Evil Dead series has kept that up. Mm-hmm. And I think Evil Dead Rise, to put it into context, Evil Dead Rise is an Evil Dead film in 2023. 2023 we are still in the age of movies like Hereditary and Midsommar and Talk to Me. And, you know, horror is not... Evil Dead Rise is coming out in a different era than the Evil Dead did. So I think the context of Evil Dead Rise, I would argue, has a lot more thematic elements than the original Evil Dead.
Yes.
And part of it is like the original Evil Dead was a bunch of college kids and a small crew with a little bit of money trying to make something they think they could sell.
Right. And, you know, also just trying to make horror and shock and, like, you know, whatever.
Right.
And when you naturally, as you hone your craft over time and also you get a bigger budget, you're going to have more.
And now you have a studio behind you.
Right. You have more
Yeah.
leeway to create something that has more meat to it.
Yeah, I read they use like an insane amount of blood, like fake blood for Evil Dead Rise.
Yes.
Whereas in the original Evil Dead, they just had to kill someone to get blood. No, I'm kidding.
Right, exactly.
But if you're listening to this, you should look up the making of the Evil Dead. Mm-hmm. It's insane what they went through because they were kids and they didn't know what they were doing. Yeah,
there was not a lot of like coordinators, HR, none of that.
Well, first off, at that time there wasn't that on like big movies either. But these are kids and they didn't know, you know?
Right.
And it's inspiring too because like they said they're going to make a movie and they did and they went through hell to do it.
Yes.
But they did it. But Evil Dead Rise, you know, it's you got Warner Brothers backing you, you know. It's a bit different. And Evil Dead is a franchise now.
Right.
You already made your money back. Mm-hmm. Because people are going to see it.
Right. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about before we got into, a couple things.
Before we started talking mommy issues?
Before we start talking mommy issues is the subversion of the general, the woods versus the city kind of change up. And I wanted to get your opinions and your thoughts on that.
I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
You don't want to make the same movie over and over again. That causes things to get stale, of course. And like, why would you want to do the same things over again? In my opinion, if you're a fan of a franchise, if I wanted to watch like another version of Evil Dead 2, I would just watch Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, fair.
you know? And you could argue Evil Dead 2 is already just Evil Dead, but with a bigger budget and more experience.
Mhm.
And like Evil Dead 2013 is a remake, right? But where that goes different from the original Evil Dead is there's no camp, there is no fun, there is no very young Bruce Campbell going, "Why are you torturing me like this? Why?" Which is my favorite part of the whole franchise. But Evil Dead Evil Dead 2013, what that movie does is it takes the story and the concept of the Evil Dead, gives it a budget, takes away all the fun, and just makes it brutal. And have you guys seen Evil Dead 2013? Producer Jeremy has not.
I have.
Yeah, so you know that movie's fucked up. And Evil Dead Rise coming out 10 years after that one, you don't want to be in the woods again because, like, you don't want to do what the original trilogy did all the way. And you can't do what Fede Alvarez did in 2013. There's no outdoing that. So I think it was a smart decision to change up the setting. And tonally, Evil Dead Rise, I think, tries to hit a middle ground between the fun of Evil Dead 2 and just the brutality of Evil Dead 2013. It works for me. I don't know if it works for everybody, but it works for me. What are your thoughts on city versus woods?
So at first I was not as huge of a fan. I was like, I was kind of stuck on this, like, well, I want an Evil Dead movie and I want it to feel like an Evil Dead movie. And at first I was like, this doesn't really feel like an Evil Dead movie to me. But that kind of changed the further we got into the movie because I kind of realized it really recontextualized the story for me. I mean, like, kind of the point of the Deadites in Evil Dead is, I mean, not the greater point, but like the point of the terror behind them is that you don't really escape until it's morning.
Right.
And it's so much more, it feels so much more claustrophobic in like an apartment setting. It's not even a haunted house. It's not like the middle of the woods. You always have this illusion, at least, and it doesn't always work out, but you have this illusion that if you run far enough, you're going to hit something.
Right.
And in an apartment, there's no running, there's no leaving. You know what I mean? I mean, like, they are in this building the whole movie.
And for context, there's an earthquake that happens, which disables the elevator, which disables, knocks out the stairs. So it's not like, well, why don't they just leave?
Yeah. There's no leaving. They're on
like, what, floor 11 or something like that? They
they're
can't
up there.
jump.
Yeah, and they're not getting out.
Yeah.
And so I think that made it so much more sinister, is it just was so in one spot.
Right.
And that was really interesting.
And I think it's exciting to just kind of, because you don't want the Deadites to change.
Mm-hmm. No.
But seeing them in different like, I'm a fan of, like, Prey, for example. Seeing a predator in 1600s, what is it, Wyoming? Or
I think so.
One of the plains states, you know, that's fucking awesome. When Jason went to space, when Jason went to Manhattan.
Yep.
When Ghostface went to Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
When Pinhead went to space.
Yeah, they went to all those places.
There are, in horror movies, there are 3 locations. The woods, Manhattan, and space.
That's true.
So
It's really those 3 places. I'm trying to think of, like, any that don't fit into that. If you, like, extend the woods to just, like, the middle of nowhere, then that's, like, everything. Like, Hereditary may not be the middle. Well, I guess their house is in the middle of the woods, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like, they live in, like, kind of a plains
Get
area.
out.
But, yeah.
They're
Get Out is in the
isolated.
woods.
Mm-hmm.
Psycho, the hotel is, like, off the beaten path.
Yeah.
In the woods.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of it takes place. Does it take place in New York? Is that where she's from? No, she's from somewhere else.
No, that's like west, like Arizona or something like that.
It's somewhere. It's Phoenix. I think you're right. Yeah. Whatever. The point is, yeah.
Yeah. Don't bring up Carrie. Don't bring up Jaws. But you know, Alien takes place in space.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Event Horizon takes place in space. We don't need to talk about The Thing.
All of the other Alien movies take place in space.
Yeah. But no, I do like I do like changing it up. I think that's exciting because, like, as an Evil Dead fan, I like to see different things. There's only a handful of things I expect you to do. I expect the Deadites to be horrible and just maniacal. I want them to be evil and terrible and just scary, right? But I want them to be, like, dickish. Like, they're kind of funny because they're dicks. You know what I'm saying? And I expect to see some Michigan State love.
Yeah.
So I'll have thoughts if you don't do that.
True.
But, yeah. What else can we dive into or ascend up to?
Bruce Campbell's cameo was fun.
Oh, on the recording?
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Book of the Dead for a reason. Something like that.
Yeah.
I like Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
And I think he was pretty involved as a producer too, like giving notes and promoting. He promoted the shit out of it.
He did. I liked that he was like, I'm done with Ash unless Sam Raimi's directing, but he still was like, but I love the franchise and I'll still give it its flowers, and you know.
So I was mentioning earlier how Evil Dead is like a pioneer of indie horror.
Yes.
And just do-it-yourself filmmaking, which I very much am inspired by. Evil Dead Rise, being the sixth film in a successful franchise with studio backing, isn't that, but I think it's really cool of Sam Raimi and Rob Tapper and Bruce Campbell is they are finding young up-and-coming filmmakers and giving them the keys to the Evil Dead. So this one being Lee Cronin, who only did one other feature, I think, and I think he's from Ireland, which is pretty cool. And then in 2013, Fede Alvarez, give him his big break. He goes on to do Don't Breathe and Alien Romulus. Even though Evil Dead Rise isn't like do-it-yourself filmmaking the same way the original was, it's still, hey, we are giving a young gun his shot. Yes. And that's fucking cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's kind of get into Mommy March. Mommy's with the Maggots now.
Yeah.
So.
I have thoughts.
Okay. Do you want to go first then?
I could fix her.
Okay. Are you like into the mom?
Listen.
Oh my God.
Hear me out. This isn't that big of a hear me out, though.
It really is.
I don't think so.
She's a rotting corpse. She is literally rotting from the inside out.
I've not seen the movie. That feels hard to fix.
I mean, she still got it.
I don't know that she does.
She's funny.
That's, I guess.
She's strong.
Yes. Okay. Is that it?
I mean, it's not my weirdest hear me out. Have you seen pictures of her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at her in her scary ass eyes and tell me you wouldn't hit it. Respectively.
Imagine that making eye contact with you. Okay, that's what I thought. Producer
Wait,
Jeremy, solidly
which picture
on
is
my
it?
side.
Yeah, just let her in. She's smiling. Yeah, I do it.
Nothing a good hug and kiss won't fix.
That's what I was trying to think of. Exactly. I could fix her.
It's very good.
But yeah.
So in terms of this movie, one of the things that I thought was really interesting was the way that they kind of use Ellie as the Deadite to kind of talk about how motherhood changes you. And like, so spoiler alert again, but Beth, her sister, is pregnant, and she finds out at the beginning of the movie, so I guess that's not like a huge spoiler or anything.
It's like the inciting incident.
Right. It's the reason she goes back to reconnect with like Ellie and the kids. And, you know, even before everything all happens, like I think it's the youngest child says like, hey, you'd make a really good mom, Aunt Beth. And she goes, really? And she goes, yeah, you know how to lie to kids.
Yeah.
And so
that's a lot later in the movie, I think.
Is it really? Oh, you're right. It is. It's after like she's like trying to tell them it's gonna be okay. You're right.
Point still stands.
Like, it's not exactly the most like motherly thing that you want to hear is like, hey, yeah, you're a really good liar. So
right.
So Ellie, the mother, is the one who gets kind of infected with the Deadite.
Played by Alyssa Sutherland.
Yes.
My lisp came out for a second. Played by Alyssa Sutherland, and who I don't think she has a lot of film credits, but she was a model, I think.
Yeah.
And she kills it in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
She brought the physicality that the role demands because she's doing like almost contortionist stuff, I think.
Right.
And, you know, she plays a frustrated mom pretty well, I think. She's great as a Deadite.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's maniacal. She's like mischievous,
Yeah.
I think.
She really reflects like Beth's perceived fears of her own pregnancy, right? Like
and she says fucked up shit.
Yeah, she like
I mean, mommy with the maggots now.
like mommy's with the maggots now. She says a lot of really like terrifying things. So there's something about titties in there. I don't exactly remember the
Right. And at one point when she's trying to kill Beth, she's like, I'm going to swallow your soul, or something like, she doesn't say I'm going to swallow your soul. That's from a different Evil Dead movie, but she's like, I'm going to do some whatever. And then she like feels her belly and she's like, oh, 2 souls. It's like, fuck.
Yeah. And it's, you know, like at one point she calls her like a groupie slut, and she tells her that she's going to, hell is waiting for you and your unborn bastard baby. Like,
that's fucked up.
A lot of really terrible things to say to Beth, and for Beth to hear from her own sister, really. But also just like her kind of, she appears in the beginning as this kind of like frazzled mother who's like trying to, like, she's a good mom, but she's also recently been separated and on the way to being divorced, so she's kind of learning how to be a single mom, so she's very like frazzled at the beginning. And
I think why people think they're estranged is because context. Ellie had just broken up with the kid's father, and Beth is all like, oh, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, I called you multiple times months ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So estranged might be strong, but, you know, Ellie's not happy.
Oh, yeah, no, they don't have a good relationship, and I want to be clear.
Not
like,
at the moment, at least.
Yeah, there's... I just feel like there's a difference between, like, estranged, which to me says, like, there was a falling out, versus, like, I'm disappointed and not as close with my sister as I would like to be.
Yeah, this is more of, like, miscommunication.
Right.
As opposed to actually, like, shit went down.
Right. But I do think that also speaks to, like, Beth feeling like, okay, I can't even maintain relationships with people I already have. How am I going to raise a baby? Like, what am I going to do here?
Right. It heightens her anxieties about the whole thing for sure. And, you know, when we talked last week about Hereditary, we mentioned cutting off the head of the family. Right. The rest of the family starts to flounder a bit. Evil Dead Rise does a similar thing here.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really interesting how Ellie, like, mentions the horrors of motherhood, like, as she is being possessed. Like, she doesn't shy away from that. She really makes the kids kind of feel bad about making her a mother, which, again, really plays into, like, Beth's internal doubts that we're kind of seeing her have.
And I think it's also important because this is my interpretation of the Deadites. I think when you're possessed by a Deadite, you are dead.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's not like her sister saying that.
No, but
the Deadite through her sister. You still don't want to hear it from. It's your sister's voice, right?
It's your sister's voice. It's your sister's face.
But in case someone hasn't seen the movie, which weird, you got this far.
Yeah, I don't know.
Weird, you press play
here.
But no, but I do want to clarify, like, that the Deadites are fucked up.
Yeah.
So they they take someone you love and they say the most horrible things. I just don't want there being any miscommunication. Like, people kind of, maybe you're listening at work or while working out. I don't care. I don't mind. Give me that play. I love it. But, like,
clarifying that this is different from, like, a demonic possession in a lot of other movies where the person is still alive and underneath there, and, like, they're kind of searching through the person's head to find ammo. This is just
the Deadeye already knows
Yeah,
what your deepest fear is.
Exactly.
But it's not her real sister saying this.
Right. And it's really interesting because while this is happening, this horrible thing that's happening, and the Deadite is kind of systemically trying to break Beth down before killing her, because that's kind of what the Deadites do. The Deadites really make you feel helpless and hopeless so that they can take it over. It really proves that Beth can be a good mother. She takes care of the kids. She, gets them to safety. But not only that, she, comforts them as much as she possibly can. And so I think realistically, she obviously learns through this experience that this is a good, like she can do this role if it's something that she wants.
What's really interesting now that you say it is the Deadite possesses Ellie first.
Yes.
It's interesting that Ellie was the most broken down because she's also the strongest of the group.
Yeah, I think that also speaks to motherhood at that point, because like you have to be perceived as the strongest amongst the people around you when you're a mom, because you are.
Beth came all that way to get help from her sister, who she also didn't text or call back for like 3 months. When she needs help, she does. I mean, and I love Beth. I think Beth is a likable character. Lily Sullivan in the role is awesome, but that's kind of not nice what she was very self-centered, I think, for a while.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like, Ellie is trying her best with her 3 kids and just putting on a really brave face. And because she has always put on a brave face, Beth is like, great, my sister will know what to do. I'm going to go to my sister.
Exactly.
And doesn't really take into account or think about the fact that her sister could need her.
Right.
And, like, I think that is kind of an interesting thing in terms of siblings generally. Like, a lot of times without noticing, the younger sibling also ends up like taking care of the older sibling in the way that the older sibling takes care of the younger sibling.
Right.
Like, I know, speaking from my own experience, my younger sister is one of my biggest supporters and everything, and she's just a wonderful human. But it seems like Beth hasn't quite figured that part out yet. Like, she hasn't really figured out, oh, like, just because I'm the younger sister doesn't mean that, like, my sister doesn't need me at this point.
Right. And
so that's kind of just an interesting dynamic.
It really is. I'm going to bounce around for a second because you made me think of it. We'll get back to the mommy stuff, I promise, because I love her and I can fix her. But something that you made me think of is I want to go back to the context of Evil Dead Rise, of where it's at, because it ties in with Hereditary, which, shameless plug, we talked about last week. Listen to that episode too. I think it's interesting that Evil Dead as a franchise, the original trilogy is iconic, and then the next 2 iterations, Evil Dead 2013 and Evil Dead Rise, kind of follow the trends a bit. Evil Dead 2013 just kind of being a more intense, visceral, graphic remake, which reminds me of like the remakes of Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre at that time. And then Evil Dead Rise comes out in this quote-unquote elevated horror era, right?
Right.
So I'm going to tie Evil Dead Rise directly into Hereditary. I think the 2 movies strangely go well together. I also watched them back to back when I was doing my homework, so that might be a reason. But like, both movies have the youngest daughter of each family cutting off something's head with scissors near the beginning of the movie.
Oh, that's true. That's crazy. I didn't think about that.
I watched them back to back, you know? And like, yeah.
Shit's elevated.
I mean, you could say Hereditary's elevated horror. I would say Evil Dead Rise is elevator horror.
Did we just do this so you could make the joke?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. No.
The drink of water was worth.
Might be true.
But like, real talk for a second. I think, because we're talking about like the thematics of Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead is not a franchise known for heavy themes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The first Evil Dead was like, can we make a movie?
Yeah.
Evil Dead 2 is like, well, let's kind of have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Army of Darkness is an adventure. Army of Darkness is the first one of the franchise where it's like a character has an arc.
Yeah.
Because Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, the characters' arcs are like, how much pain can you handle before we... we're just going to ruin your day. That is the theme of Evil Dead 1 and 2.
And
Army of Darkness has a hero's journey.
Right.
I'd say Evil Dead 2013 has this really interesting, like, substance abuse theme going through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's reflected of when that came out. But Evil Dead Rise really goes into a family aspect, which I think a lot of movies post-Hereditary, and obviously Hereditary being a big one, I just wanted to bring those two together.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think...
They're completely different movies otherwise.
Right. But I do think, like, I mean, we touched on this at the beginning, but yeah, I mean, when you have a bigger budget and you have a studio and you've just honed your craft better. I mean, like, Sam Raimi went from being, like, a very recent post-college kid to, like, now he's, like, a very prolific director. So you end up doing things that are deeper. And I think that one of those, I think that this really touches on, like, grief in a very different way than Hereditary does, but it does touch on grief. Like, obviously, Beth is grieving her sister, but also, even before then, like, Ellie's grieving her marriage, her relationship, or I don't know if they were married or not. But
and
like,
you could argue Beth is grieving her career.
Right, that too. And so... kind of painting, like I said, this idea that motherhood really changes you, and I don't want to use the word corrupts because that feels really dark, but you know what I mean. Like, it fundamentally changes you as a person. I mean, like, you hear women talk about it all the time. When they have a baby, they're a different human from who they were before.
You kind of evolve.
Exactly.
I think is a good way to put it.
And in some ways that's really beautiful and wonderful and amazing, but in other ways, like, a lot of women, they have to mourn the life that they have before. They don't have the same freedoms. They don't have the same considerations. And I think that is a beautiful thing because you have a life that you are responsible for, but it also, like, is something that a lot of women, like, contend with when they're dealing with things like postpartum depression and stuff like that, and just like an adjustment period.
And there's a dynamic where Beth is going and chasing her dreams, and I think Ellie resents that a little bit because you can kind of see Ellie, it's not explicitly stated, but there's evidence in the film that she was a tattoo artist. Yeah.
And well, I mean, and also, like,
I mean, the scene where she's about to stab her daughter's eye with a tattoo gun might be the most explicit.
But even at the beginning, before everything, and also like just the way that she diminishes Beth's job. I mean, she makes half-hearted jokes again, even before she's possessed.
She's calling her a groupie. I'm a guitar technician.
And she's like, I'm a guitar technician. And like, she does have this wonderful career. And yeah, I think Ellie is jealous, and that's not, I don't think, a bad thing. I mean, that just happens.
A human thing.
It's a human thing. And I think that it's interesting that you use those specific words, because I think that the way she calls her a groupie in this half-joking way before she's possessed is very different from how she does it when she is possessed, which is derogatory. Like, before she's like, oh, you're a groupie, and then she's like, I'm actually not. I'm a guitar technician. Yeah. And then after, she's like,
calling her groupie slut, and it's like very pointed. It's very mean.
Yeah, and it's derogatory. And like, Ellie, human Ellie, alive Ellie, would never, ever say that to her sister.
Not even when angry, because she is angry.
No, and she is angry. But she doesn't even, that's not how she thinks. She's not thinking, oh my gosh, my sister is going around, like, sleeping with all of these rock stars. She's like, my sister has this amazing jet-setting life, and I could have had that, and I don't. Right. I settled down with somebody who I thought was going to be the love of my life, and he gave me these 3 beautiful children, but now he's gone, and I'm alone. And I think that's, I mean, I am not.
And I don't think she regrets the kids at all.
No, of course not.
Because, like, when they come back, she's freaking out when they go for pizza and they're missing, and she's freaking out when they come back. She's like, you never take the elevator after an earthquake.
No,
and she's freaking out in them, and then she's like, we dropped the pizza, and she's like, oh, I love you more
like,
than
I don't care
some
about the pizza.
you know?
Yeah, and like, yeah, no, I think she's
and the
just
last thing
more...
she says is, don't let it take my babies.
Yeah. And that is, she never for a second regrets the kids. It's just regretting what her life could have been, even with like a more supportive partner. Because it's not even like, I mean, we don't meet the guy. I don't know what he's like, but it's not like she had to give up being a tattoo artist forever. You know what I mean? If that was not, if that was something she was like, this is a desire I want to have, and now she doesn't have a partner, so she doesn't have a way to get back to her passion is more the big thing now that her kids are older. So, yeah, I just think that it's a really like sad commentary on motherhood and like the sacrifices one has to make for motherhood, but also just like the fear of not being a good mother.
And it's one you don't expect when you put on an Evil Dead movie.
Right, exactly.
Which I think is very fun.
So as far as like the impact on greater culture, I want to bring it back to like the practical effects because as you said, like, you know, the practical effects at the beginning may have been incidental for the fact that they didn't have a budget. But now that we are in modern horror and it is so common to use like CGI, I think that realistically the Evil Dead franchise has been pretty consistent with keeping practical effects alive, and I think it might be part of the reason why practical effects are making a comeback in other movies, like other genres and such. Like they're bringing it back around, like coming full circle back to practical effects and live sets and things like that.
Yeah, because you look at a big Hollywood production like Alien Romulus, directed by Evil Dead alum Fede Alvarez. Yes, there is a horrible instance of CGI we don't need to talk about right now in that movie, but the xenomorphs look fantastic.
Yes.
And they're practical, and the sets are practical, and the what the fuck thing at the end of the movie's practical. I don't want to spoil it too much, but yeah. So, Evil Dead, I think, has always... Well, the original films... What else are you going to do, right?
Right.
And Army of Darkness has some, like, forced perspective and some fun visual effects. But Evil Dead 2013, Evil Dead Rise, these are movies that they know who the fan base is. And the fan base grew up on the most disgusting practical effects you've ever seen.
Right.
So these movies have to do that. One, because it's dope. Two, you don't want to piss off the audience, you know?
Yeah.
And I think Evil Dead Rise has some great effects. They used some computer stuff, but it's more to like paint out wires, you know, help kind of transition the practicals into each other. Like they're not using computers to create a character or to do anything like that. To my knowledge, at least. Maybe they did. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think it was mostly practical.
What I can tell is to remove wires and for like safety.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I appreciate that they've remained consistent with that. I think, like I said, we're seeing a return to practical effects, not just in horror, but in almost every genre. I mean,
Star Wars, say what you will about the sequel trilogy, they had a lot of practical effects.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking even as recently as Wicked had real sets rather than like CGI backgrounds. And that is, I think, something that filmmakers are slowly starting to realize, like, people are thirsting for real. Even in their escapism, even in their, you know, whatever, they are thirsting for...
Well, I don't know about real, but tangible, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
they want to touch the Star Wars.
I think just in an age of like virtual things and AI and things like that, they're looking for tangible, but that's kind of what I mean by real, like things you can touch, not things like in the computer verse, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I got you.
Because it's just like one of the things that, you know, especially if you're kind of a movie nerd, is that you are looking at things like behind the scenes and you are trying to, you know, see sets and things like that. And I think Something that I saw earlier was a behind the scenes picture. I have no idea what it was for. I don't know if it was for a movie, a TV show, whatever. But it was just like a guy in like one of those special effects suits, and then like a green screen. And it was like behind the scenes of whatever. And somebody quote tweeted it and said, like, I just don't know how this would be fun to film.
Right.
And so I think like people who are looking at the art form of movies, obviously I'm not saying CGI is bad. It's not. It's given us such wonderful things, and like we wouldn't be able to have certain movies without it. But I think having kind of a balance of CGI plus practical is really a really fun movie to watch. It makes Evil Dead Rise great.
Yeah, and you want Evil Dead Rise to be goopy. And I don't think CG does goop very well.
Yeah.
Goo, maybe, but not goop.
That's fair.
Goop is tangible.
Yeah.
You have to be able to touch it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Evil Dead Rise is a movie you can feel.
Yes.
And that makes it gross.
Yes. And awesome.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
It feels like a goop. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, that shit's goopy.
That shit's goopy.
But yeah, overall, what do you think of Evil Dead Rise?
I think it's grown on me. I think when I first watched it, I did not give it a great rating on Letterboxd, but I think the more that I like dissect it and I'm looking at it more than just as like a thriller horror, gory movie, the more I find myself like considering it.
Well, and it's definitely your expectations for it might be a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It might not be the best movie to watch right after Hereditary, is what I'm trying to say.
Because, like, I think what I said in my Letterboxd review was that the emotional stakes weren't there. And I think they were. I think it was just, I had watched it right after watching Hereditary. And Hereditary, the whole movie is emotional stakes. And then you get to the horror right at the end.
And Evil Dead Rise is goopier and fun.
Yeah.
There's a little campiness to Evil Dead Rise. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek to it, that
right, different purposes.
Watching right after Hereditary, you might not appreciate it because you're in a certain mindset after a movie like Hereditary, right. I think. So, but yeah, I really enjoy Evil Dead Rise. My Letterboxd review, in case you care,
I do,
is what I said was, has all the blood and split diopter shots you can dream of.
That is true.
Which I got to mention real quick. We talked about Carrie 2 weeks ago, had a bunch of split diopter shots in that. I was very happy to see some split diopter shots in Evil Dead Rise. There were a bunch of them.
Yeah, I think one of the ones that I mean, like, this might not be my favorite, but one of the ones that I really liked was the one with one of the kids and the record player kind of seeing the way.
Yeah, I thought that one was really cool.
Looking at it, I thought that was really nice.
And he's doing really fun stuff with, like, the Deadite in the foreground, the Deadite in the background.
Yes.
But, yeah. So I said, has all the blood and split diopter shots you can dream of. However, it has no Michigan State love. So it's last my Evil Dead rankings.
Yeah.
Still a banger, though. I gave it 4 stars and a heart.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do what it's supposed to, but it's fine.
Yeah, not this rewatch, but on a different one, I saw they had like some Laker stuff. So this is me. I'm stretching for it, but I want to be a fan, right?
Do it.
Lakers, Magic Johnson.
Right.
Where did Magic Johnson go? Michigan State, exactly. So
Grand Valley State. Explain that connection.
Oh wait, what?
Oh.
Bruh.
This is not about you.
So, but yeah, I'm stretching when I'm like Lakers,
Magic Johnson,
Michigan State.
Legend.
It's not enough for me, but
it's like how the Lions basically won that game because the Commanders won and Magic Johnson owns the Commanders and Magic Johnson went to Michigan State, which is in Michigan, just like the Lions.
Just like the city of Detroit.
Yeah. You guys get it.
Bruh.
Anyway.
That was uncalled for.
And the Eagles won, and they wear green.
So really, Michigan State.
really,
And Ben
Michigan
Van
State won.
Sumeren is an
They won, the
Eagle.
Lions won, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champs.
Listen, we're winners, no matter how you slice it.
It's really true. All right. So let's move on to our superlatives.
Yes.
Who would you save?
Hmm.
You
I would-
can't say no one. You said no one last week.
I wasn't gonna say no one.
Alice Wolf.
He's not in this movie
I would just save him
So,
anyway.
for marriage.
so the one dude who lives in like the apartment with them,
The one, which one?
the one with like the younger brothers,
Oh yeah, the one.
and he gets his fucking eye bitten out
Yeah, that was crazy.
and his like throat torn out.
And his poor younger brothers are just like, we're just gonna watch the Freddy movies.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, I can't tell. I think he has a little crush on
Ellie.
Ellie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I'm like, same, bruh.
Poor guy.
I know he didn't do, and then he helps his neighbors, and you know what he gets for it? His fucking eye bitten off, his throat torn asunder, and then he gets to morph into like that horrible, like Evil Dead conglomerate that we have not talked about yet.
Yeah, that's crazy that we just missed that whole part.
What do you, what? I don't think conglomerate's the right word.
I don't know. Amalgamation?
Yeah,
Sure.
the Ford Fusion.
As far as who I would save Ellie.
Ah, mommy.
Oh, I love her. I think she's like just trying her best, and she's a really great mom. And her shitty sister just kind of stopped talking to her when her husband left her.
Right. And
I
then
just-
shows up unannounced.
And then shows up unannounced, and then
Yeah.
there's an earthquake in her building, and she's trapped, and then she gets possessed by a demon after she dies. Like, there's so much.
Ellie's horrible, no good,
Very
very,
bad
bad, day. Alternate title.
Ellie and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Oh, what a reference.
So real quick, I just gotta mention when Beth shows up unannounced at Ellie's house and she goes to like scare her and Ellie just fucking clocks her. That was a cute moment.
It was cathartic for me.
So moving on, what is your favorite scare?
So my favorite scare is like the Shining elevator reference type deal.
Yeah.
All the blood. Love all the blood.
My
Yeah.
my favorite scare is a different reference.
Okay.
It's a reference to Evil Dead 2.
Okay.
Remember when I said I would save what's his name? He gets his eye bitten out.
Yeah.
That is my favorite moment because poor guy gets his eye bitten out and Ellie spits it right into the mouth of his younger brother
Yeah.
who chokes on it.
Yeah.
And yes, that was taken from Evil Dead 2, but sometimes you gotta play a classic.
It's true.
I know I was like going on and on and on earlier about how I want different. I want, you know what? I've seen that kill before, but I haven't seen it in a building.
Listen, I understand
Or
that,
an
like,
apartment, I mean. I've seen it in a
sometimes-
cabin.
Sometimes I really, really like original and new and fresh. And sometimes I'm just like, ha ha, ha. Same thing I liked.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I felt about the last one in Star Wars Episode 9. I was like, this movie is just nostalgia. And I love that. Ewoks, 10 out of 10. Great.
Lando, I know him.
I know him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I felt.
I fucking love Lando Calrissian.
Speaking of Landos of the world, Tony Todd Award for movie MVP. Who do we got?
You want me to go first?
Yeah. I want you to go first.
Alyssa motherfucking Sutherland as Ellie. Maggot mommy.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
The girl of my dreams. She deserved better.
She's dead. She's with the maggots now.
Not in my heart.
That's fair. My MVP was Tristan Lucas, who did this special effects and was the lead makeup artist.
Hell yeah. He did
Um,
such a good job.
Yeah, he killed that shit. I was reading an interview with him, and he was talking about just how much blood it took to do everything and all of the like practical effects and stuff like that. And that's just kind of what I kept going back to when I was doing my research. So I was like, that guy has to win my MVP.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because like I really like Ellie as a Deadite. I think she's my favorite villain in the Evil Dead franchise, which is saying a lot because there's so many good ones.
Okay. Yeah.
But he's a big part of that too.
Yeah.
Because she's scary.
She's terrifying.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think that's a great MVP pick. Is the score better than Jaws?
No, it was fine.
Yeah. Hope.
I mean, like, it was a good score. I was just, I don't know that it was memorable.
It's a score that worked.
Yeah.
It did its job.
Yeah.
A bad score you would remember for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. And I think this is one of those movies, again, kind of like Hereditary, where it's vibes based.
Right.
And the vibes for this are not necessarily like it knows when to fade into the background. It knows when to not be like the most distracting part of the scene, and I think that was good.
And Evil Dead as a franchise is not one known for its scores.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So it's fine, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The moment where I can kind of think of it really is the title card.
Yeah.
Which the title card fucking rules.
For sure.
But yeah, it's a good score, but it's not a Jaws
Mm-hmm.
contender. Like we opened up this month with Psycho and Carrie, which are very, very strong scores.
Yes.
So would this make a fine addition to your collection?
No, I don't think so, because I don't own any of the other Evil Deads. You know what I mean? Like, this would not be, like, if I owned all of the other Evil Deads, I think it would be, like, on my list of, okay, I want to own this.
Yeah, because you're, like, a completionist?
Because I'm a completionist. But
Yeah.
I don't know that I would be like, oh my gosh, I loved this specific movie so much that I would buy this one out of all of the franchise.
No, that's fair. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, if you had the other ones, you'd do it, but, like,
Yeah.
you're not going to start with this one.
No.
No, I think that's very fair.
What about you?
I have it.
How many versions?
Well, it's a 2023 release, so I only have one.
Okay.
But I have it on 4K.
Oh, okay.
And I do have all of the Evil Dead movies
Yeah, I did
on
know
4K.
that. Okay.
So I am a completionist. And yeah, you're right, a lot of goop.
There's a lot of goop.
I like my goop. So, the most important question. If you found yourself in a scenario, would you die?
Absolutely. I am far too nosy about my apartment neighbors. If this was happening in our apartment, it would probably be Neil, and I would just cuddle him so he'd kill me. And then if it were one of our neighbors, I would be like constantly looking out my little like window thing and just like trying to figure out what was going on. So absolutely, like I would be the one to lose my eyeball and then get it thrown down Jeremy's throat.
Iconic.
Yeah. What about you? Would you die?
I don't live in an apartment.
Fair.
So, this particular thing,
Do you generally go to the woods?
you know, I don't generally read from like Necronomicons.
You have a lot of dumbass friends who would, though.
Fuck. That's a good point. That is a very...
Evan would
Very
read
good.
from the Necronomicon.
Shout out my boy! Let's go! But yeah, if I had... I mean, yes, there's no surviving a Deadite. I'm not Bruce Campbell. I'm not Mia. I'm not Beth. The second I see Maggot Mommy, I'm like, whatever you want.
That's
Whatever-
awesome, man. Good
Yeah.
for you. Follow your heart.
Nothing a hug and kiss can't fix. I got you. I fucking got let you in. You're already the door's been open. What you talking about?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's weird that you're thirsting over this one. But you know what? We're going to get to some in the future that I will also be weird over. So it's going to be great.
Mothra.
I mean, always Mothra. Always Mommy Mothra.
Mommy Mothra. That's who we should have
That's true.
brought in at some point. I fucking love Mothra.
Mother Mothra.
So that is our episode on Evil Dead Rise, ending with our queen Mothra.
Mm-hmm. And that
as
is
always.
Mommy March. I mean,
Oh, that's right.
we're
That is
through.
That is the end of the March.
Are we going to announce our next month's theme to get people ready?
Yeah, because if you're listening, if you've made it this far, you deserve a little treat, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So next month is werewolves. We are talking werewolf movies.
Werewolf Wednesdays, baby.
Werewolf Wednesdays. I'm not going to reveal which films just yet,
No.
but yeah, it's 5?
Yes, it's a 5-week
Yes.
month in April.
5 delicious films featuring lycanthropy.
Yeah,
Lycanthropy?
lycanthropy.
Lycanthropy.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of good variety in Werewolf Wednesdays, which
Yeah.
I really like. I'm really excited to dive deep into that. Should be really good. I'm really excited to see that.
Got some classics, got some
Some newbies.
newbies, got some cult-like faves. So it's a good mix. I'm very proud of it. The ones we curated.
Got some movies that only Anneliese cares about, but that's okay.
I don't think that's the case.
I think it is.
We'll figure that out.
We'll figure that out.
Ow.
Oh.
So yeah, that is that week. Our month, yeah. Next April is for the wolves.
True.
I am Austin Torres. You can follow me everywhere at Austin M. Torres if you so desire.
And I'm Annalisa Petersmark, and you can follow me at Whimsawillow on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, Letterboxd, all the above.
And follow the show at Would You Die Show on Insta, Blue Sky, TikTok. TikTok. We have a Patreon. Find us on that. Give us, if you like the show, you can give us some money for us to keep going. If you don't like the show, you can give us some money and you can continue to hate.
If you give us money and give us ideas to make the show better, if you hate it, we'll consider them. We may not do them, but we'll think about it.
Yeah, so, yeah, just, we want to engage with the peeps.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know how we're doing. Very curious about that. Hope you guys loved Mommy March. I had a fun time recording these.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Mommy March is with the maggots now. On to Werewolf Wednesdays.
Ow.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Annalisa.
This is Would You Die? Try not to die. Go green.
Go white.